The payments industry moves fast. The economics behind it move even faster. Welcome to On the Wire, a show about the economics of payments, the institutions moving money, and the infrastructure underneath it all. This episode is produced by Payware using AI voice synthesis, built from primary research, technical documentation, and real market data. No studio, no hosts, just the content, clearly presented. Let's get into it.
Have you ever noticed how the checkout process, whether you're, buying something online or just grabbing a latte at your local coffee shop, is kind of slowly, quietly shifting?
Oh, absolutely. It's happening everywhere.
Right. Like for decades, we've had this ingrained muscle memory. You pull out a piece of plastic, you swipe or insert, you wait for a beep, and well, that's it.
Yeah, it's a system we've been using more or less since the 1950s.
Exactly. But recently, you might have seen a new prompt on your screen, or maybe a different kind of QR code sitting next to the cash register, asking if you want to pay directly from your bank.
Which seems like a small UI change. But behind that simple tap or click, there is this massive, fundamental technological transition happening in the way money actually moves.
Yeah, it really is a profound shift.
It is. I mean, we are moving away from the traditional credit card rails that have dominated global retail for half a century. We're moving toward what's known as account-to-account, or A2A, payments.
Right.
But what's largely invisible to you, the consumer, is the immense pressure this shift puts on the businesses trying to accept your money. Because changing how a business takes in cash is historically like one of the most terrifying things a merchant can do.
And that pressure is exactly what we're looking at today. We are digging into a fascinating source document provided by Payware.
Their integration guide.
Right. It's literally titled Merchant Integration from Zero to Live in 4 Weeks. And our mission for this deep dive is to look at the actual realities of adopting A2A payments. We want to completely shatter this long-held myth that updating a store's payment technology requires, months of expensive, complex coding.
It's a very pervasive myth.
It is. So, okay, let's unpack this. Where does that fear even come from? Like, why do business owners break into a cold sweat when you just mentioned changing their payment processor?
Well, it comes from heavy historical precedent. For a long time, integrating a new financial system into an existing business was a monumental undertaking.
A huge headache.
Exactly. The baseline assumption for most merchants today is that adding any new payment rail means a massive 6-month IT project.
Wow, 6 months.
Yeah, they picture a small army of developers rewriting core code, breaking the website, causing downtime, losing sales, and spending tens of thousands of euros before a single transaction is even successfully processed.
So it's not that they don't want the tech.
Right. The most common objection to A2A isn't that businesses don't want the benefits of it. It's that they simply believe they don't have the operational bandwidth or the technical resources to survive the implementation phase.
But according to this guide, that narrative is completely outdated.
100%.
To understand why this payment revolution is accelerating so fast, we really have to dismantle that specific roadblock. So let's start with the absolute simplest scenario.
Okay, let's hear it.
Say I'm running a small to mid-sized online business. I'm not custom coding my whole website from scratch. I'm using a standard off-the-shelf platform like WooCommerce, Magento, or PrestaShop. Does bringing A2A to a site like that require an IT department?
Not at all. For those types of businesses, which is path 1 in the guide, the payment provider has already built an e-commerce plugin.
Oh, nice.
The guide lays out the timeline for this, and it is radically shorter than merchants expect. You basically just go to your platform's marketplace, install the plugin, enter some API credentials you get from the payment provider, and configure what your checkout button looks like.
Seems pretty straightforward.
It is. Then you run a few tests in a sandbox environment and you go live. The entire process takes literally 1 to 2 hours, costs virtually nothing, and requires only basic web skills.
Wait, sandbox, for anyone not deep in dev speak, that just means a safe fake environment where you can run test payments without accidentally charging real money, right?
Precisely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it lets the merchant verify that the buttons work and the success messages fire correctly without actually moving any real funds. Once everything looks good in the sandbox, you just flip the switch to live.
I have to push back a little here, though. I understand the concept. It reminds me of the fear of making your home a smart home. Like 10 years ago, you felt like you had to hire an electrician to tear open your drywall and rewire your entire house.
Oh yeah, total nightmare.
Right. But today, you literally just buy a smart plug it into the wall, and connect it to your Wi-Fi. But wait, integrating a completely new financial rail in 2 hours, is that actually realistic for a functioning business, or is that just marketing fluff?
What's fascinating here is that the smart plug analogy is perfectly accurate. It isn't marketing fluff because the underlying architecture of modern commerce has fundamentally changed.
So.
Well, the merchant's website isn't actually processing the bank transfer. The plugin is simply acting as a secure bridge. The real complexity of the bank routing, the security protocols, the data encryption has all been abstracted away by the A2A provider.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, the plugin just tells the provider, here is the shopping cart total, and here is the web address to send the confirmation when the payment is complete.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So the heavy lifting happens on the provider's servers, not the merchants.
Exactly.
But let's scale this up. The smart plug analogy works perfectly for a basic WordPress site. But what if I'm a massive software company with a totally custom-built checkout experience? I don't use WooCommerce. Surely, building a custom connection from scratch requires that dreaded 6-month IT project.
It requires more work, but it's still nowhere near 6 months. For custom checkouts, which is past 2, businesses use an API integration.
Okay, so real coding.
Right. This does require an intermediate developer. They have to review the technical documentation, set up a payment initiation endpoint, and handle the webhooks so the merchant's database knows exactly when a payment successfully clears.
Stop right there. Webhooks and endpoints. Let's translate that for the non-developers listening.
Fair point. Fair point. Think of an endpoint as a specific digital door on the payment provider's server that is waiting for instructions. The merchant system knocks on that door and hands over the payment request.
Okay, makes sense. And a webhook.
A webhook is the reverse. It's an automated tap on the shoulder. Once the customer's bank approves the payment, the provider server uses a webhook to tap the merchant server on the shoulder and say, hey, the money is confirmed, you can ship the product now.
Got it. So the developer is just wiring up those digital doors and automated notifications. How long does the guide say that custom wiring actually takes?
The source estimates it takes about 40 to 80 hours of developer time.
Wow, that's not much.
No, it translates to roughly 1 to 2 weeks of work. If you factor in a standard developer rate of, say, €50 an hour, the total cost to build a fully custom A2A integration sits between €2,000 and €4,000.
A few €1,000 in 2 weeks of work is a far cry from a budget-destroying half-year nightmare.
Definitely.
So we've covered standard e-commerce and custom e-commerce. What about physical brick-and-mortar stores? The coffee shops, the clothing boutiques, that's path 3, right?
Yes. Bridging the gap into the physical world involves integrating with a POS, or point of sale, system. The timeline for this is listed at 2 to 3 weeks.
Okay.
But the technical integration itself is incredibly simple. It usually just involves confirming the POS system supports the new module and turning it on, sometimes for a nominal fee of up to €50 a month.
Reading through the guide, what really stood out to me is what those 2 to 3 weeks are actually spent doing. It isn't tech setup at all. That time is mostly dedicated to staff training.
Exactly. Because in a physical environment, the technology might be simple, but human behavior requires adjustment.
Yeah, people are stubborn.
Very. You have to train your floor staff on how the new QR code or NFC flow works so they can confidently guide the shopper through it.
And NFC, just to clarify for everyone, stands for Near Field Communication. It's the exact same tech that lets you tap your phone on a terminal to use Apple Pay or Google Wallet.
Yeah.
The hardware is already there. The merchant is just routing the tap to a different network.
Precisely. The technical skill required to turn it on at a physical register is minimal. It's an operational rollout more than an IT project.
So knowing that the tech is surprisingly easy to install leads directly to the next crucial question: why bother?
Right.
I mean, even if it only takes an afternoon, a business owner needs a compelling reason to change anything about their daily operations.
It's purely a math equation for them. If you look at how traditional card networks operate, it's helpful to imagine them as a highway with 5 different toll booths.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
When you swipe a card, that transaction has to pass through the merchant's payment gateway, the acquiring bank, the card network itself like Visa or MasterCard, and finally the issuing bank.
That's a lot of stops.
And every single one of those toll booths takes a percentage of the transaction. A2A payments bypass that entire highway. They build a newly paved direct tunnel from the buyer's bank straight to the merchant's bank.
No middleman taking a cut. So what does that look like in real numbers?
Let's look at a baseline scenario from the source.
Yeah.
Take a mid-sized merchant processing about €5 million in annual volume. With standard credit cards, They are paying roughly a 1.3% rate,
Which means,
which means 65,000 euros a year vanishes just in transaction fees.
ouch.
Yeah. With A2A, the fees start at just 0.5% and the settlement is instant.
Wow.
If that merchant can convince just 25% of their customers to use A2A instead of a card, they save over 10,000 euros every single year. The guide calculates that the payback period for whatever integration costs they incurred happens anywhere from 10 days to 8 months.
10,000 euros a year just for giving customers a second way to pay. That's incredible.
It really is.
There was a case study in the guide that really cemented this for me. It was an e-commerce fashion retailer doing 3 million euros annually. They had a small team, no dedicated in-house developers, and were running their site on WooCommerce.
Oh, right. They use the simple plug-in path.
Exactly. They spent an hour and a half installing it, 1 hour testing it in that safe sandbox environment, and then pushed it live.
It's 2.5 hours of total work.
Yep. The guide reports that within 6 months, 18% of their customers were organically choosing the A2A option. That retailer saved over 4,300 euros in transaction fees in just that first half year.
That is a staggering return on 2.5 hours of labor.
But the financial benefits aren't just about shaving fractions of a percent off transaction fees. Here's where it gets really interesting, especially if you run a business with recurring revenue.
Ah, yes, the subscription models.
Right. The source highlights a SaaS software as a service subscription business. They do 8 million euros annually, and they have a custom billing system, so they went the API route.
And it took one of their developers about 60 hours over a week and a half to integrate.
Correct. Over the following 12 months, the cheaper transaction fees saved them 20,000 euros. But the guide lists a massive secondary bonus. They saw a 15% reduction in involuntary churn.
Which is huge for a SaaS company.
It is. I honestly never thought about credit cards naturally expiring as a literal business crisis. But of course it is. Every 3 to 5 years, every single piece of plastic in the world hits its expiration date.
Yep.
Cards get lost, they get stolen, they get caught up in fraud alerts and replaced. And every time that happens to a subscriber, the software company has to chase them down, send out automated emails, and beg them to update their billing info.
And if the customer ignores the email, then the recurring revenue is just gone forever.
Exactly. So how does A2A mechanically fix that?
Well, it comes down to the direct link. When a customer sets up a recurring A2A payment, they aren't typing in numbers from a piece of plastic. They authenticate a direct, tokenized connection with their actual bank account.
And bank accounts don't expire.
Exactly. If you lose your debit card, your bank account remains exactly the same. The billing cycle continues uninterrupted regardless of what piece of plastic is currently in your wallet.
It acts like a leaky bucket fix for subscription businesses. You aren't just saving money on processing. You are literally preventing customers from accidentally falling out of the bottom of your revenue bucket.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it becomes clear that A2A fundamentally removes massive administrative and operational headaches from the merchant's plate.
So true.
And perhaps the ultimate example of removing an administrative headache is the PCI compliance exemption.
Oh, this is huge.
Very.
For anyone who hasn't run a retail or e-commerce business, PCI stands for Payment Card Industry Data Security Standard.
Right.
It's essentially the brutally strict set of cybersecurity rules you have to follow if you ever touch, store, or transmit credit card numbers. It's how the industry tries to make sure you aren't leaking customer data to hackers.
And maintaining the compliance is famously expensive and stressful. It involves mandatory security audits, complex data encryption protocols, and constant network monitoring.
Sound expensive.
Oh, it is. For a typical merchant, the guide estimates it can cost anywhere from 1,000 to 10,000 euros a year just to prove they are compliant. But A2A payments bypass this entirely.
Because they don't involve card data at all. There is no 16-digit card number being typed into the website. There is no CVV code from the back of the card.
No expiration date either.
Right. The customer authenticates the payment directly within their own highly secure banking app. Because the merchant never once touches or stores any sensitive financial information on their own servers, they are completely exempt from PCI compliance for those specific transactions. You can't steal what isn't there.
You eliminate the annual cost of compliance, you vastly reduce the risk of a devastating corporate data breach, and you drastically lower your day-to-day processing fees. The economics for the business owner are undeniable.
So the technology is incredibly straightforward to integrate, and the business economics are vastly superior. But there's a third pillar here that we can't ignore.
The human element.
Yes. None of that technical or financial brilliance matters if the human being, the actual buyer standing at the physical register or sitting at their laptop, gets confused and abandons their shopping cart.
Very true.
Human beings are notoriously stubborn when it comes to money. How does a business retrain ingrained consumer behavior?
That is the real operational hurdle. Changing habits takes effort. The first rule the integration guide emphasizes to merchants is that A2A is not meant to replace credit cards on day one. It is meant to complement them.
That's a relief as a consumer. It's about offering a menu of options, not forcing a strict diet.
Exactly. You display both options side by side at checkout. Some customers are heavily invested in their credit card rewards points, or they might legitimately need to use credit to finance a specific large purchase.
It makes sense.
Others prefer the security of A2A because they don't want to type their credit card details into a random website they've never used before. Offering both provides critical payment redundancy.
Which protects the merchant, too.
Right. If a major card network goes down, which happens, the merchant still has A2A. If a bank's API is undergoing maintenance, the merchant still has cards.
That transition period for the customer is fascinating, though. Reading the timeline of adoption in the source reminded me of when the whole world shifted from swiping the magnetic stripe on credit cards to inserting the computer chip. You remember that era?
Oh, painfully well, yes.
Right. There was always that awkward 30-second moment where everyone stared at the little screen, the cashier included, waiting for the beep and not knowing exactly when to pull the card out. It felt incredibly clunky at first, but once we collectively learned the rhythm of it, it became completely invisible. It's just second nature now.
This raises an important question, though. Whose job is it to guide the customer through that awkward 30-second learning phase? According to the guide, that responsibility falls squarely on the merchant, and it requires heavily front-loaded education. The source actually provides data on this learning curve.
What does the data show?
For a first-time user, an A2A payment takes about 30 to 60 seconds to complete. They have to read the new prompt, understand what's happening, open their mobile banking app, and authenticate with Face ID or a passcode.
But the guide notes that the very next time they use it, that time drops to 15 to 20 seconds. And for a regular, accustomed user, it hits 10 to 15 seconds, making it essentially just as fast as a standard card tap.
Exactly. To get a customer base to that 10-second mark, merchants have to be highly proactive. Online, this means using brief, clear explainers right next to the payment button.
Something simple like pay directly from your bank, secure, instant, no card needed.
Right. Or they use a first-time tooltip like a little pop-up box that highlights the new option.
And in the physical store, it comes back to that staff training we talked about. The guide literally provides scripts for cashiers. Instead of just staring silently, the cashier says, "We now accept direct bank payments. Just scan this QR code with your camera."
They also recommend putting small, physical 1, 2, 3 visual guides right next to the register.
And that front-loaded educational effort pays off predictably. The guide maps out the expected adoption rates over time.
It does.
In month 1, a merchant will typically see about 2 to 5% adoption. These are your early adopters, the tech-curious folks who love trying new buttons.
Right. But as the visual familiarity grows, it scales. By month 3, adoption sits at 8 to 12%. By month 6, it's 15 to 20%.
And by month 12, you hit a mature state where 20 to 30% of all transactions are flowing through the A2A network instead of traditional cards.
But what happens when things go wrong during that initial learning process? Let's say I'm in month 1, I scan the QR code, but then I get a text message, I get distracted, and I put my phone in my pocket.
Yeah, that happens all the time.
The source is very clear that failure handling has to be graceful. If a customer starts an A2A payment but times out, which the system allows 10 minutes for, or if they just get confused and hit cancel, the merchant's whole order system doesn't crash.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, the order simply remains pending, and the customer is gently returned to the checkout screen to pick a different method, like their trusty credit card.
So it's designed to be a highly robust, fault-tolerant system.
Exactly. Actual technical infrastructure failures, where the banking API breaks or the provider network goes down, are incredibly rare, sitting at under 0.5% of transactions.
And to make the initiation as frictionless as possible for any given environment, Kware actually offers 7 different ways to start that payment.
The variety there is crazy.
It really is. QR codes on screens and NFC taps, we understand, but the guide also lists text message links, email payment links, printable barcodes for paper invoices, Bluetooth low energy, and even sound bites. How does a soundbite process a financial transaction?
It's a brilliant piece of engineering, honestly. The merchant's terminal emits a highly specific, secure audio frequency. It's often completely inaudible to the human ear. But the microphone on the customer's smartphone picks up that frequency, translates the audio waves into an encrypted data packet, and uses that data to automatically open the banking app with the exact payment details preloaded.
You're kidding?
Nope. The customer just looks at their phone, Face ID authenticates it, and the payment is done.
That is wild. Your phone literally listens to the cash register to get the bill. It just shows how many diverse avenues exist to make this seamless. Whether you are buying software on a laptop or buying a sandwich in a noisy cafe.
Truly.
So what does this all mean for you listening? Whether you are a business owner looking for a rapid return on investment to drastically cut down overhead, or just a curious consumer wondering why your favorite online subscription or local barista is suddenly prompting you to pay directly via your banking app, you now understand the mechanics driving this global shift.
You've seen behind the curtain.
Exactly. It's entirely about removing the toll booths. Companies like Payware operate as a neutral transaction network. They never hold the funds themselves. They just securely route the encrypted information between the two banks, drastically reducing friction, cost, and risk for everyone involved.
Yeah.
And as we've seen today, getting a business connected to that network doesn't take 6 months and an army of stressed out developers. It might just take a free afternoon, a standard plugin, and a sandbox test.
It is a remarkable evolution in commerce. And, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over as this technology continues to mature.
What's that?
Well, the source explicitly mentions that one of the main reasons consumers currently prefer credit cards is because of the rewards. The 1% cashback, the airline miles, the hotel points.
Oh, people love their points.
They do.
Mm-hmm.
But those rewards aren't free. They are funded directly by the high transaction fees the merchants are forced to pay. So as A2A checkout times drop to 10 seconds and merchants start saving tens of thousands of euros a year in fees and PCI compliance costs, the retail landscape will inevitably shift. How long until those businesses start passing their A2A savings directly back to the consumer in the form of deep point-of-sale discounts?
Oh, wow.
Think about it. If a merchant actively incentivizes you with an instant 2 or 3% discount on your total bill just to skip the plastic, will your shiny credit card rewards ecosystem suddenly become a relic of the past?
It's a fascinating economic question. The next time you find yourself at a checkout counter, staring at a terminal, reaching out to tap your plastic card from sheer decades of muscle memory, take a second to look closely at the screen. You might just be looking at the end of an era.
That's On the Wire, produced by Payware, the transaction resolution network for instant A2A payments. This episode was AI generated from Payware's published research and documentation. If something sparked a question, the full source material is available at payware.eu. If you work in payments at a bank, an ISV, or a merchant organization, and what you heard is relevant to what you're building, reach out. The conversation doesn't have to stop here. Subscribe to On the Wire wherever you listen to podcasts. The next episode is already waiting.